I would like to officially welcome you to our Infoevent on the staff exchanges of the Marie Sklodowska-Curie Actions. And I'm very happy to have a speaker from the Research Executive Agency in Brussels. It is Nancy Zoccotto. She is a project advisor at REA in Brussels. And I'm really, really happy to be able to have her and to have first-hand information basically directly from Brussels. So I'm going to share her presentation. I give you the word, Nancy. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks a lot for introducing me. I'm very glad as well to be here with you today and to present you our scheme, the staff exchanges. My name is Nancy Zoccotto-Pomenya and I'm in the agency since about a year. Before I was working as the project advisor in DG INPA on Africa-EU relations. And now I'm in the Research Executive Agency. So before to start, I'd like to highlight that the staff exchanges support research and innovation staff exchanges. And it's a continuity of RISE, for those who knows. It was quite a successful scheme with more than 500 grants, also thousands of research organizations in EU in the world, and more than 15,000 staff seconded and counted. It is the most international MSCA program with more than 100 countries participating. With no further ado, we're going to look at the main objectives of the staff exchanges. So we have to go to the next slide, please. Okay, so before the objectives, let me present you the structure of the presentation. We will start by the policy background, sorry for that, then the staff exchanges main feature, and then the last part will be the proposal submission and evaluation. So you can go to the next slide. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go through the policy background. So as you can see, the Marie Sklodowska-Curie Actions is part of Pillar 1 Excellent Science of Horizon Europe. And the main objective of this pillar is to reinforce and extend the excellence of the Union's science base. Marie Sklodowska-Curie Actions is mainly aiming at equipping researchers with knowledge and skills through mobility and training. So you can go to the next slides. Within the MSCA, we now have 5 main actions: the doctoral network, the postdoc fellowships, the MSCA and citizens, the co-fund, and what is today being presented is the staff exchanges. And our main feature is secondments that are international, intersectoral. And this is the main feature of the staff exchanges. You can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so yes, so now I'm going to present you the main objectives of the staff exchanges. So the first key objective is international, intersectoral, and interdisciplinary mobility of research and innovation staff. I'm going to quickly explain what intersectoral means. Basically, it's exchanges between academic and non-academic organizations, while interdisciplinary is exchanges between different disciplines that can be identified with the MSCA keywords that you can see in the main guidance for applicants. Now, the second objective is to allow for knowledge transfer between participating organizations. It's a bottom-up approach, and our objective is really to cover all fields of science. So what we want is to strengthen knowledge transfer between key organizations. The idea is really to welcome the creativity and entrepreneurship and help turn ideas into concrete products, services, and processes. So the staff exchanges involve organization from the academic and the non-academic sectors, as you understood, with a strong focus on non-academic sector, including SMEs, small and medium enterprises. I think it's one of the most welcoming program to non-academic actors within MSCA. So the last point I would say is that through this program, we really strengthen collaboration across the globe. So it's very an international and transnational program that is allowing for collaboration to be strengthened and networking. So we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, thanks. From the start, I would like to highlight the key features as compared to RISE. The first feature is that duration is now 4 years, so basically 48 months, and it's up to 360 person months per project. The second novelty is that now secondments are ranging from 1 to 12 months per staff, and that it is mainly covering interdisciplinary secondments. At the same time now, it is possible to have same sector secondments within Europe. The condition is that this kind of secondments have to represent up to 1/3 of the total secondments of the project. What is also for interest to you is that it's a unit cost program. So this means that, in fact, the administrative burden is less important, especially for Swiss entity, since you are mainly associated partners and you are not beneficiaries, meaning that you don't per se sign the consortium agreements and you receive funding indirectly. Okay, so in general, the budget per call is 75.5 million euros. So we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so now we're going to look at the added value of the program for organizations and staff members. As you can see in the graph, the first kind of added value for staff members is that they can, through the program, transfer skills and competencies with their peers. It can also lead to an increase of their employability and career prospects, which is quite interesting. If you can go back to the previous slide. Thank you. So for instance, there are some staff from academic organizations that are afterwards recruited by non-academic actors. What is also key for you is that it's a concrete program, meaning that research and innovation is then transferred into concrete ideas, products, and processes, and that it allows for international exposure and networking. For organization, it's quite similar. So you have transfer of knowledge, collaborative network, and research and innovation capacity. And what I want to add is also that specifically for companies, I think one important point is that it's a first step towards EU funding, meaning that this program can allow you then to after access to other EU funding. So that's quite an interesting thing. Also, another interesting point is that there is a high success of a high success rate. So I think 1 up to 4 of the proposals are funded, which is quite encouraging for the applicants. You have less administrative burden, as I said, because it's a unit cost program. You have the possibility to have access to open science and innovation with larger dissemination of the results of the program. The program is really business oriented with intellectual property rights. And through the program, once the program is being achieved, you have access to some innovation tools from the European Commission, such as Innovation Radar and Booster Program. So these tools allow you, for instance, to make sure that the innovation are ready for market, and the booster allows you to support you in the promotion of the results of the program. For your staff, it's a good way to allow for career development and transfer of knowledge with the academic sector, and this allows you as well to be aware of the last trends of the industry. Last but not least, this is the key opportunity for you to contribute to the EU missions and notably to the mission of the European Union to boost growth and innovation. So I think now we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so now we're going to go into practicalities. So we're going to look at the eligible participants. As you can see, those who can participants can be either academic organizations or non-academic organizations. The key, let's say, feature of our program is that you have to build a consortium. So applications must be submitted by a consortium of at least 3 independent legal entities in 3 different countries, and 2 of which in a different EU member states or associated country. Only legal entities that are established in an EU member state or associated country can be beneficiaries. So if all organizations are from the same sector, meaning only academic organizations or non-academic organizations, there must be at least 1 organization from a non-associated third country. So as explained previously, secondments with EU member states and associated countries should be between different sectors, except for interdisciplinary secondments, which must be limited to up to 1/3 of the total secondments under the action. Okay, so now we are going to look at the eligible staff. So you can go to the next slide. Thank you. So I think it's quite straightforward from the graphic. So the first step is also, of course, that you have to be seconded staff members. So the definition of staff is according to the national law and international practices, with the sending organization having the legal means in terms of control, supervision, and instructions over the secondee. So the secondments are open to any type of staff contributing to research and innovation activities. So it can be either researchers, administrative, managerial, or technical staff. So researchers can be at any stage of their career. So it can be like early researchers or more advanced researchers. And the staff members must be actively engaged in research and innovation activities for at least 1 month at the sending institution before the first secondment. So I won't go too much into that, but as I said previously, the secondment period should range between 1 and 12 months. So there is a simplification, and the minimum duration now is 1 month, independently of the institution where they go. So during the secondment, the staff needs to be working full-time to the action. And after the period of secondment, secondees should return to the organizations to allow for transfer of knowledge. So now we can go to the next slide, please. So, all right, thanks a lot. So in this table, you can see which are the exchanges that can be eligible. So to start with, exchanges between hosting and sending organizations can be either from for member states and associated countries. We'll start like that. The exchanges can be either between academic and non-academic organizations and associated partners eligible for funding. Now, if the exchanges are between academic and academic, the secondment should be up to 1/3 of the total secondments. For associated partners, let's say non-eligible for funding, you can't have secondments between associated partners that are either eligible or non-eligible for funding. So that's a key aspect. So we can go to the next slide, please. All right, thanks a lot. So what does the staff exchanges fund? quite simple. So it's a unit cost. The total amount is 4,600 euros. So half goes for the staff members. So it's like 2,300 euros, and half goes to the research organization. So it can finance for the research organization, research, training, networking, management, and indirect costs. So you can go to the next slide, please. Thanks a lot. Just one second. So now we're going to go in the concrete matter, and we'll see how to submit a proposal. So is it okay? Yes? Okay. So first of all, everything is done through the funding and tender portal. So first, you should find your call, sign in the portal, find partners, and apply. We can go to the next slide, please. Okay, as you can see, the MSCA Staff Exchanges 2022 call is open, and the deadline for submission, I think, is 8th of March 2023. So we can go to the next slide, please. Yes, that's it. And the budget is 77.5 million euros. So there's a slight increase as compared to 2021 of 7%. We can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so in the funding and tender portal, you'll find some key documents that will help you to submit your proposal. So one of the most important one is the guide for applicants, where you can find all the guidelines that can allow you to apply. Then you have the relevant templates, you have the relevant model, for instance, the model for the grant agreement, explanation on the MSCA program, how to submit an application, and even some responses to the frequently asked questions. So we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so in submitting your proposal, you have two parts. You have the part A, which with the structured data. So it has to be filled, and mainly it should contain all the administrative information about the applicant. The part B1 and B2 is more content oriented, and it concerns the description of the action. Now we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, for you to submit a good proposal, I think it's important to go through the evaluation criteria. As you can see, we have three main criteria, which range from excellence, impact, quality, and efficiency of the implementation. So first of all, you have to describe the added value of the program and describe how the consortium is more than the sum of its parts. Then it is suggested to emphasize the original and innovative aspect of your proposal, how the proposal will steer the knowledge sharing and the transfer, and highlights the three aspects of our scheme, which are international, multidisciplinary, and intersectoral secondments. In terms of impact, it's important to highlight how the program will make a clear impact from a social and economic standpoint, and how it will take the research and innovation up to another level. So you should also make clear what are the intellectual property issues in your proposals, and this should not be neglected. In terms of implementation, you have to make a clear plan of implementation with a clear indication on how you're going to monitor the risk, what, how, and who is involved by the project, the key stakeholders. You should outline the strong points of each partner and pay attention to the Gantt chart. So next slide, please. Okay, here are a few tips and tricks. So of course, you should closely follow the call requirements, follow the guidelines, highlight the EU dimension, because after all, this program is corresponding to the EU policy priorities. Your MSCA NCP is here to support you, of course, and have your proposal. You can also ask a colleague to proofread your proposal. And it's also important to show how the program will be sustainable in on the long run. So you can go to the next slide, please. Begin. Okay. There's, for your information, a possibility to work as an expert. So the European Union institution appoint regularly external experts to assist in the evaluation of the grant application of project and tenders to provide opinions and advice in specific cases. You can go to the next slide, please. Okay, for your information, I want to inform you that on top of this info session, if you want to know more about our scheme, our program, we will also organize the Research Executive Agency, an info session that will take place on the 7th December 2022. So we'll send you all the practicalities and all the details through your NCPs, I think. Anytime short. I thank you for your attention. I think this was the last slide, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Yes, for explaining this not too easy funding scheme in such a nice way to us. Thanks a lot. As I said in the beginning, we will take questions after the 3 interventions. So we are continuing with the Swiss angle. My colleague Isabel Spüler is going to present how Swiss-based institutions can participate in MSCA staff exchanges. I give the word to Isabel.
Hello everyone, my name is Isabel Spüler. Together with Sibylla Martinelli and Véronique Saudet, we are the MSCA national contact points here in Switzerland. And it's a great pleasure that we could have Nancy Tokoto from the RIA introducing staff exchanges. And now I think many of you are wondering, how can we as Swiss institutions still participate in MSCA staff exchanges? So I would like to give now 50 minutes to this question. As I said, we are 3 national contact points, all in the office in Bern. You can contact us anytime if you have further questions, if you're preparing such a proposal or any other proposal related to Marie Sklodowska-Curie Action. Please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. Euresearch is also a network. So let's say you would be a company in the Canton Vaud, you can also get in touch with the office in the region there. There are also company advisors. So we are really organized that we can give the best support locally and also nationally. You find all the contacts on this link. And now to the status of Switzerland in Horizon Europe. So maybe as a first introduction, there are different ways how institutions can participate in Horizon Europe. When you're an institution in a member state, let's say France or Germany, Italy, you're simply a member state. Now there are some countries like Norway that are associated to Horizon Europe, but they are not member states. And Switzerland would also need to negotiate, and currently it's a so-called non-associated third country. So as a non-EU country, Switzerland has to negotiate its association, and currently we are considered a non-associated third countries, and this has strong implications for all participations. So the consequences are that we can participate as so-called associated partners. So Switzerland is not associated to Horizon Europe, but we are so-called associated partners in the proposal. And as such, Swiss institutions are not eligible to receive European funding. However, very important message, the Swiss government, the Swiss State Secretary for Education, Research and Innovation provide some funding if the proposal is successful. And this is what I will present in the next minutes. So the costs from the Swiss institutions don't count towards the given European budget, but it's like a known entity in itself. So the Swiss State Secretary for Education, Research, and Innovation also informs on their website. So it's always a good idea to also check the newest updates on their website, but we of course always inform as soon as possible if there are any changes to the status or any rules. So now consortium, we have heard many things now already from Nancy, and yet I think it doesn't harm to get some repetition because it is kind of a complicated action. So as I explained, there are different status, and in staff exchanges, the special thing is that some third countries that are in a list of so-called low to middle income countries, they can actually receive European funding and become beneficiaries. But Switzerland is clearly not on this list, and we can only be associated partners. And as associated partners, we don't sign grant agreements. We can, however, have secondments of staff, meaning we can host European staff, and we can provide training, and we can not claim direct costs from Europe. This is a repetition of what I said before. Now the composition of the consortium, maybe just as a reminder again. So the consortium needs to be at least 3 legal entities in 3 different countries, 2 of which have to be in member states or associated countries. And as you've heard, it's a lot about inter-sectoral mobility. And let's say there are 2 academic institutions from member states. They need to include an organization from a third country. So maybe some consortium are actually very happy to include Switzerland. So don't think just because Switzerland is now in this third country status, it's a bad idea to include them. It's actually, it can be a good idea, of course, to include them. And the recommended size of consortium is 6 to 10 organizations. Don't overload the consortium. Maybe you have so many friends all over in the world, but based on experiences, it should be 6 to 10 organizations to make a meaningful proposal. Now we have a look at the eligible secondments. Now I repeat what Nancy said for European funding. You see, I listed now circles: member states, associate country, academic and non-academic. Third country, low to middle income, academic, non-academic in green, and other third countries, academic, non-academic, so Switzerland in this purple. So member states, science agreements, third country, low middle income are eligible for funding, and we are not eligible for European funding. And the conclusion is basically what you see here in blue arrows are all those secondments, so meaning researchers or any staff member that is involved in this project to be seconded to those other circles. So as you can see, actually it's not complete, I'm very sorry. I see, for example, also non-academic member states to Switzerland, non-academic would also be eligible, but I hope you see the principle. So the idea is that any secondments from a EU member state to Switzerland would be eligible, or to any third country in the world that is low to middle income, let's say Vietnam would also be eligible, and from Vietnam to France would also be eligible. Just within the same country is not eligible, and that it is not eligible that a Swiss researcher would go to European member states or to a third country low to middle income. And this is a very important message to keep in mind. So any secondment between third countries are not eligible, not just not eligible for funding, but also it should not be included in the proposal. So maybe you want to have secondments with the US, but this is not possible to include in the proposal. Now, very important, what is eligible for Swiss funding? As I said, we are the third country, not from low to middle, but the others who can only be associated partners. they can receive direct funding from SERI, so academic, but also non-academic. This is very important for companies to know. They can receive direct funding from the Swiss government when the proposal is successful. And the funding, the eligible ones are secondments from Switzerland to any EU member states or associated country to an academic or non-academic institution. So secondments within Switzerland is not eligible, and any secondments to a third country, so to a country that is not associated or member state, these are not eligible for funding. I hope that this is a clear message. So you can receive staff from an academic or non-academic institutions to your Swiss institution, and this is paid by Europe. And if your Swiss staff, I mean, this is not about nationality, but staff employed in Switzerland goes to European member states, this is paid by Switzerland. So this is like a matching fund. And this is the overview image. Here we also have the non-academic part. So you see here all the different secondments, meaning like visits, some months of visits to go to a different institution. These are eligible for European funding or Swiss funding. I hope this has been clear, otherwise we can look at them at the end again of all the sessions. And I want to quickly go into the proposal itself, because maybe you are thinking of preparing a proposal and you wonder how can you include now the Swiss part that is not eligible for European funding. So it's very important that you include the Swiss secondments as well, because for the Swiss State Secretariat, they need to have something in the document so they can fund you. You cannot just afterwards claim, oh, actually we want to second people. It has to be part of the successfully evaluated proposals. So please include all the secondments that the Swiss government should pay, even if Europe doesn't ask for it in from their perspective. But from the Swiss perspective, this is very important. So for instance, now this is a bit complicated maybe, but let's start with part A. There is a budget. Here again, the logic is this is European budget. So here the secondments of the Swiss staff is not part of this budget table. Because this is the European perspective, they are not paying it. It's not European money. Don't include the secondments from Swiss staff in this table. Now we have part E1. This is the part that is evaluated. And in the first one, excellence, here you should include the Swiss secondments, because this is basically part of the entire project. So please describe that Swiss staff will be seconded in this project and that they will be funded nationally, like a matching fund. So include them and include what is their contribution, why they are important to include it. As also Nancy said, it's more than the sum, so that it's really clear why the Swiss are part of it. Then we have the table 2. Here, this is basically the only table where all this, where some secondments are listed. Not all of them actually, only the interdisciplinary secondments between partners within the EU member states in the same sector. So you see, even not all the secondments of the proposal, but just those within the same sector, because there's this rule that it should not go beyond 1/3. And here again, the Swiss secondments are not part of this table, only the European ones. And we go to implementation in the work plan. Again, here it's important to have the Swiss secondments included, because it's part of the work plan. How do you implement the project with those secondments from Switzerland? Again, please emphasize, repeat that there is own national funding. And also in the work package description, there's this total person months per participating organization. Please include it with maybe a reference or asterisk stating again, own national funding. And last but not least, very, very important for associate partner is the letter of commitment. So there will be a template that we can share with you. So if you are participating, you can just write us. We provide you the adapted template for the letter of commitment. You can also write one yourself. There are all the guidelines as well given from Europe. But here it's very important to include what is a Swiss contribution, and therefore you should write when Switzerland is funding their own researchers for the secondments, included also in the letter of commitment, as well as that you host other secondments or that you provide training. Everything that the associated partners is contributing should be in the letter of commitment. And without a letter of commitment, your participation is basically ineligible. So this is really important. And contractual agreements. So there's this letter of commitment as well. And because Switzerland is not signing the grant agreement, please discuss with the coordinator and the consortium about a partnership or the consortium agreement, so that there is this expectation management, right? So that's because there is not an agreement that Switzerland signs, but there should be an agreement before with the other partners, what is the contribution of Switzerland. So, and in addition, in the staff exchange, sometimes there are issues coming up based on the visa. So remember, this is secondments. So all the staff have to stay employed in Switzerland. This is also a precondition that the Swiss State Secretariat can pay. But also maybe based on the nationality, or you just have to check of the visa of the people that you want to second, but also when you want to host stuff. And this is actually regulated in Switzerland locally. So please check with the HR of your institution or with the institutions in your canton if you host stuff, what it actually means for the visa. And with that, I just want to come back to the most important messages. So Swiss institutions participate for the moment as associate partner. Switzerland is not eligible to receive funding from Europe. However, once the proposal has been successfully evaluated, they will be funded. Those secondments from Switzerland to EU member states or associated country are financed by the Swiss State Secretariat. And yeah, maybe you're completely confused. So we are always here to inform and advise. You can contact us anytime for your questions. These are the two main homepages that I think are important regarding the Swiss situation. Maybe you also want to share this with the coordinator. And this is the email address that you can always contact us with any questions about Swiss participation in the staff exchanges. Of course, Swiss researchers can write us or any Swiss company, but also the coordinator, if he or she has questions, should not hesitate to contact us. And with that, I would finish my part of the presentation. And yeah, thank you very much for your attention. And maybe this was now all very theoretical. So I'm very happy that we can have today a testimonial. It's actually a testimonial who has participated in Horizon Europe. So the last year's call of 2021, when Switzerland was already facing the difficulty to be the known associated third country in the participation. Hello, Bernard Messler from the IBM Research in Zurich. Thank you so much for joining.
Hi, Isabel. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Okay. Can you see me?
We can also see you.
You can even see me. Wonderful.
Yes. Oh, I think you probably have to become a host so that you can share screen.
Let me try to do that. Maybe it's working.
Oh, okay.
It should be working.
Is it working?
Yeah.
Yes, it's working. So thank you so much for your testimony, sharing your experience with us.
Okay. Sorry, I am having a cold, so maybe my voice is a little bit different from usual, but you don't know my voice. So
it's all fine.
So I'm Bernard Metzler, Principal Research Staff at IBM Research Zurich Laboratory, and I'm going to motivate you all to apply for this MSCA staff exchange by proving you that it's indeed possible to get a grant. And what I wanted to do is shortly introduce the IBM Research Lab in Zurich, and next thing, maybe most importantly, why are we interested in doing an MSCA exchange program? Then I will cover quickly what is the administrative effort to make it happen, what are the rules, or what is our approach, how did we interpret these rules, and ending up with a summary. So IBM Research Zurich is a well-known research site you may be aware of. It has been established in 1956. We have scientists from more than 45 different nationalities. We are very much into open collaboration within Horizon 2020. We have more than 50 funded projects and more than 500 partners from the EU doing work together with us. We have some worldwide recognition. We are basically hosting or have hosted 3 Nobel Prize winners in the past, and we are considered as a European physical, from the European Physical Society, we are considered as one of the important historic sites. A few years ago, we have started a deep collaboration with the ETH Zurich when we built up the Spinning and Roller Nanotechnology Center, which is part of our current campus. Within IBM Research Zurich, we have 7 European Research Council grants to 7 individuals. We are doing lots of research in different fields, including computer science, life science, mathematics science, physical science, security, cryptography, semiconductors, systems, quantum, artificial intelligence, and last not least, hybrid cloud research. And the MSCA program we applied to is basically living in that field of hybrid cloud research. So why did we consider to apply for this MSCA program, and what is the benefit for us? We participating in this so-called Cloud Stars project, which is comprising a large international consortium, which is larger than what Isabel was suggesting as the maximum amount. We are one of 18 institutions from 11 countries, including Austria, Germany, Israel, Italy, Netherlands, Poland, Portugal, Spain, Switzerland, UK, and US. So you see, this is not all European Union countries, but also countries like the US, like UK, like Israel, which are being part of this upcoming project. This work will cover 321 personal months over four years. So this is in the ballpark, but Nancy was saying that we shouldn't go over 360, so we are close to that. And this Cloud Stars project is an open source research mobility network in the field of cloud computing technology, as I already said. And the main goal of that project is to create a global reference community in the open source cloud computing. So we are mainly focusing on developing open source software, which is one of the interesting things to us as well, because we as IBM, as you may know, are very much into open source. We are pushing for open source solutions within the cloud computing. We as IBM Zurich Research Department of Hybrid Cloud Research will host researchers from 5 institutions. The collaborative work will span 50 personal months. And if you see to the lower right side, you see that the project is structured into work packages, and we are basically mainly within work package 2. So we are within cloud infrastructure. So we will build together with our European partners new build up and contribute to established projects within the field of cloud infrastructure. So as I said, all the work we will do within that project will be open source. So all our software we are writing, we are contributing will be open source software that makes it very easy to live with that within IBM and also to cooperate with our partners from other countries and other institutions. And what we really want to do with that project is basically two things. One is to establish new relationships with leading European research institutions. So that's something we are always interested in. We are always interested in to have collaboration with other companies and institutions. And one reason, of course, is also to get new ideas feed into our research, and also to learn about new connections to new individuals, and maybe to also later on extend the collaboration towards hosting PhD projects or even hiring staff members in the future from people we have successfully worked with. And what we're also doing is we are trying to reinforce already established research connections. So what you see on the upper left side, the green marked members of the consortium where we are hosting people from partially institutions we are already working on, and we are happy to reinforce the cooperation. And to say it in a nutshell, we want to participate in a win-win situation of joint work with very limited financial effort from our side. It's also interesting these days. So we are not spending too much money here because we are basically hosting people, and this hosting of the people gets funded by the EU, which is very interesting to us. Now it comes to the administrative part of it. The current rules, I think, already have been covered by Nancy and Isabel. We are, as a Swiss institution, are having the status of a non-associated, so-called third country, which is an interesting word, which could be misleading. A third country in Horizon Europe. We are participating as associate partners. There is a rule I have seen that you could elevate your level to beyond associated partner if your contribution to a project is deemed to be essential. But as I will show on the next slide, we stayed at this level. As we are associated partners, we cannot claim any costs from the EU, but European partners cooperating with us are eligible for the same funding as if cooperating with EU partners. So anybody who comes to us gets the funding from the EU, and we don't have to spend any salary for these people. And what comes into play is the State Secretary of Education, Research and Innovation, short named SERI, which would stand in for directly financed staff exchanges from Swiss institutions like us to other European partners. And interestingly, those fundings would not count towards the EU budget. They are for free from an EU perspective. So there is some intrinsic benefit for EU projects when they have Swiss partners being included, if the Swiss institutions are willing to send people, that costs get basically covered by Switzerland and not the EU. Next slide is on our approach. So on the right side, you see this already mentioned by Isabel, letter of commitment template, which had to be signed by our lab director, which we filled in. And as a summary, we are hosting people from 5 institutions. We are basically hosting 50 personal months out of 321 personal months, which is quite substantial. But for the overall project, what we decided to stay at the status of associated partners. That means you cannot claim any costs from the EU. we could claim costs from zero, but since we do not send people to other institutions and we are just hosting researchers, there is no funding we are expecting from the series. During the preparation of the project, it was under discussion among all participants if IBM Research Zurich should lead a work package, which was proposed by some of the members, and it would be legally possible. And we also were interested into it, but we, after some discussion among all of us, we decided that given our status as a third country, we thought this might lower our chance to be accepted by the EU. So we withdraw that idea. So we don't lead any work package officially, while we are basically the main contributor to the cloud infrastructure work package. So with that given setup, we are virtually out of business with the series. So we are not doing any funding requests to the series. We don't need any contract negotiated the series, and we do not any reporting to them. And you have to say, even if you didn't do that, it would have been not too hard to do. So because the funding process from series looks very straightforward to us. Once the project is retained and negotiated, we would just submit a request via an online form, and series would issue a subsidy contract, and we send them an invoice and get the funding in the end. So the process seemed to be quite straightforward, but since we are mostly interested in hosting people, we did not went down this path. So we are already at the summary slide. We as IBM Zurich Research are just happy to participate in a rather interesting international project. We are very happy to cooperate with very notable European institutions. We do that at very low cost from our viewpoint. And we have also a very limited bureaucratic overhead. And this overhead is, I have to say, very nicely handled by the EU Research Network, represented by Isabel here, and also very nicely handled by our IBM lab local EU contract specialist. So I am not doing too much in that respect. I can mainly focus on the research part of it. So what is the notable difference of MSCA to other EU Horizon projects? I wanted to add here, because we are also in other projects which are different to MSCA Staff Exchanges. This MSCA Staff Exchange is more about developing the community and developing the research network, and it's more about rising the career of young European researchers. It's not that much focused on the concrete outcome. So one of the concrete outcomes is the network in itself, and that's maybe something we have to take into account. And I think that this is a very nice thing to have, that you are not only have to convince the EU of any concrete project idea, but you also can convince the EU Commission of having a very nice diverse consortium from many countries which are cooperating in the spirit of the European Union. That's all from my side. I hope you have questions.
Thank you very much, Werner, for your testimonial. It was really very interesting, and always also for us good to know how, what are the motivations, the thoughts behind. And as you also emphasized, it would be possible to also send Swiss staff. You have decided to just host them. And it is also nice that you come up with this issue of the work package leader, that there was discussion, and sometimes there is confusion, but I just want to emphasize, for Swiss institutions can be work package leader, just not for the management work package, of course. I mean, this wouldn't make sense. But if there are questions related to this, people can always contact us also again. And yes, for the moment, I would like to simply thank you so much for
Sure.
coming and sharing. And I would give the word back to Sibylla so that we can also stop for once the recording and maybe have some further discussion afterwards. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Also from my side, Bernard, thanks a lot for sharing with us your experiences with this funding scheme. And before I stop the recording, I would just like to give you a handful of take-home messages. So first of all, the staff exchanges of the Marie Sklodowska-Curie Actions, they are a funding scheme fostering knowledge exchange and training by seconding staff worldwide, basically. And in the specific situation that Switzerland is in now with regards to Horizon Europe, it is still possible to participate as a Swiss-based institution, and eligible secondments that for member states or associated countries would be paid by the EU. For eligible secondments, there is direct national funding for Swiss institutions available. And we know it's kind of complicated and confusing, but we would like to really encourage you and also for the research administrators that are here in this event, also if your researchers at your institutions, if they have questions, please get in touch with us. We are really happy to clarify such questions that can come up in this confusing Swiss situation currently. So I'm going to stop the recording now, and then we move on with the question and answer session. Just a moment. I stop this.